Do you have a time machine? Probably not. Yeah, neither do we. But we do have something almost as good. Photographs that capture how people in the Soviet Union lived nearly 100 years ago. Let's rewind to the 1930s, right into the heart of a country that was changing at breakneck speed. Industrialization, collectivization, a new life, and new hardships. An era of sharp contrasts, hope, and harsh reality. Let's take a look at what that actually looked like. Here's a regular worker, a Siberian stonemason, USSR 1931. His name is Mikhail, and if you really look at his face, you can tell life wasn't easy. Rough skin, tired eyes, heavy clothing. This is a man who works with his hands, a lot, every single day. This photo was most likely taken in Magnitogorsk, a city that was being built almost from scratch at the time. Thousands of people like him were literally building the country's industry from the ground up. Now, Conti children, 1936, somewhere in the north of the USSR, in what is now the Tyumen region. Look at their clothes, their bare feet, the house behind them. This isn't city life. This is a completely different world. While factories and new cities were rising across the country, life here remained almost unchanged. Simple homes, very few possessions, a life shaped almost entirely by nature. To us, this might look extreme. To them, it was just everyday life. And maybe the most striking thing here is the contrast. Same country, completely different realities. Now a totally different scene. 1930, Cheboksary, a bicycle rally on Rosa Luxemburg Street. Young people on bikes, some barefoot, some in simple clothes. But look at their faces. This isn't survival. This is movement, energy. At the time, the USSR actively promoted sports and mass events. Things like Spartakiads appeared, basically their own version of the Olympics. And here we see a typical city moment. People riding, watching, gathering. Simple life, but with a clear sense that the country is moving forward. 1938. Evanki women, somewhere deep in Siberia. At first glance, a traditional lifestyle. Fur clothing, a simple setting. But look closer. Perfume bottles. That's the sign of a changing era, even in remote regions. New objects, new habits were slowly appearing. The Soviet Union was reaching even these distant places. Now we're in Leningrad, 1930s. What you're looking at is a street cleaning machine. At first glance, it looks a bit odd, almost homemade, but it's actually one of the early urban machines used to clean city streets. The cities were growing fast, and new technology came with that growth. Step by step, manual labor was being replaced by machines, and the city itself was starting to look different. Railroad construction, 1930s. And here's something important. Most of the workers are women. They're drilling wooden ties, handling heavy tools, doing physically demanding work. At that time, women in the USSR were increasingly working alongside men, on construction sites, in factories, in the fields. This wasn't symbolic. This was real, exhausting labor. And people like them were building the country's infrastructure. Now, an industrial plant, 1932. Everything feels different here. Not a field, not a street. Production, huge machines, massive structures, and people, part of the system. In the 1930s, places like this were appearing all across the country. This is what industrialization looked like. A fast, demanding shift to a fully industrial economy. This is no longer simple life. This is work by plan, by system. And it's places like this that change the country the fastest. And now, something completely different. Early 1930s, Moscow region. Just a girl with braids. No movement, no action. Just a quiet look into the camera. And in that look, no performance, no posing. Just a person. Photos like this remind us that behind all these massive changes, construction projects, and plans, there were ordinary people with their own lives, their own thoughts, most of which we'll never know. 1938, Taimyr, the far north. a nomadic council meeting, people sitting on sleds, reindeer nearby, a tent, snow everywhere. No offices, no conference rooms. But decisions are still being made. The Soviet system of governance reaches even the most remote regions, and yet life itself barely changes. Same conditions, same way of living. Once again, that contrast, a new authority inside an old world. And finally, children, 1930s. Simple clothes, a wooden bench, an accordion. Nothing extraordinary. Just a moment. But it's moments like these that show the era best. Despite everything, hard work, difficult conditions, life went on. Children grew up, and even here, there was still room for simple joy. And if you look at all these photos together, you start to realize the 1930s weren't one single story. They were millions of different lives, some filled with hard labor, some with new technology, some barely changed at all. But there's one thing they all have in common. People. Ordinary people who lived, worked, found moments of happiness, and dealt with the time they were given. And maybe that is what real history actually looks like. What surprised you the most?